Welcome to Books in 10. Remember, we're raffling an iPhone when we reach 10,000 subscribers. Like, subscribe, and journey with us into this fantastic book. Share with your friends, and let's create the biggest book community on YouTube together. Oh, there's a link to purchase the book in the pinned comments. Enjoy. We are accepting book requests to create content within. Suggest the best titles in the comments. Now let's go. Ever feel like drowning in information?
Oh, yeah.
There was this massive jumbled mess.
Totally.
Things, ideas, words swirling around. Well, today we're diving into a book that might give you the mental toolkit to organize it all.
Ooh, what's that?
Aristotle's Categories.
Wow, categories. It's wild how relevant a 2,000-year-old text can be, right?
It really is.
Aristotle basically tried to create a filing system for reality itself.
Like a mental filing cabinet.
Exactly. He wanted to understand existence's fundamental building blocks.
And I guess how language makes sense of it all.
Right, how we use words to describe the world around us.
And that's what category is all about, breaking down that world's complexity.
Into 10 basic categories.
10 perfectly labeled drawers in your mental filing cabinet.
Love that analogy. And each drawer
Represents a different way that things exist.
What's cool is Aristotle doesn't just list them. He explores their relationships too, dives into the nuances of language, different ways we use words. It's fascinating.
He even tackles tough concepts like opposites or priority.
Oh, yeah, and simultaneity.
Okay, let's open that first drawer. Where does Aristotle even begin with this whole categorization project?
Well, with the basics, words and their meanings. He says a single word can have multiple meanings.
Oh, so that's where things can get messy.
Exactly. If we're not careful, it leads to all sorts of confusion.
Give me an example.
Okay, he uses the word animal.
Animal. How can animal be confusing? Seems pretty straightforward.
Well, think about this. You call a real, living, breathing dog an animal, right?
Sure.
But you can also call a painting of a dog an animal. Same word, different meaning. One's a real creature, the other's a representation.
Ah, I see what you mean. So the word's the same, but what it refers to changes.
Precisely. Might seem obvious, but Aristotle argues it's crucial for clear thinking.
We need to be aware of those subtle shifts in meaning, especially with abstract ideas.
Exactly. And from there, he gets into the heart of his system, the 10 categories. Everything that exists, he argues, fits into one of them.
A universal map of reality.
You got it.
Okay, I'm ready to see this map. What's the first category? The most foundational one.
That would be substance. For Aristotle, it's the bedrock of existence.
The primary stuff everything else is built upon.
Exactly.
So what is substance? It seems like a pretty abstract concept.
Think of it this way. Substance is what makes you you.
Like my personality.
That's part of it, but it's more fundamental. It's the core essence of a thing, what makes it distinct and unique.
Okay.
And Aristotle distinguishes between primary substance and secondary substance.
Primary and secondary. Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference?
Primary substance refers to individual things, like you, me, this microphone, that tree outside.
Concrete stuff.
Yes, the individual things that make up the world. Secondary substance, that refers to the broader categories those individuals belong to.
So I'm a primary substance, but human is secondary, since that's the species I belong to.
You got it. And animal is also a secondary substance because humans belong to that genus.
So we get more general as we move from primary to secondary.
Exactly.
So secondary substances are like labels for grouping similar things.
You could say that. But for Aristotle, primary substances are more fundamental. They underlie everything else. They're the subjects of all our predicates. We say things about them.
So how do we know if something qualifies as a primary substance?
Well, Aristotle gives us some criteria. First, a primary substance isn't present in another thing. It exists on its own.
Like this table isn't in something else. It's a distinct thing.
Right, whereas brownness is present in the table. It's an attribute, not a substance itself.
Okay, starting to get it. What's next?
Second, a substance has no contrary. There's no opposite of a specific thing like this table.
Wait, but isn't a short table the opposite of a tall table?
He's talking about individual substances, not general categories. There's no opposite of this specific table.
Subtle, but important.
Very. Third, a substance doesn't admit a variation of degree. You can't be more or less of the individual you are.
So I can't be more me or less me.
Exactly. You just are. A quality like tallness has degrees. Something can be more or less tall. But you're simply you. No scale of you-ness.
I like that. No scale of you-ness. Makes you think about how unique each individual is.
Exactly. And that leads to the fourth criterion, maybe the most intriguing one. A substance is capable of admitting contrary qualities while remaining numerically one and the same.
Okay, lost me there. What does that mean?
Think of it this way. You can be happy one moment and sad the next.
Sure.
Healthy at one time and sick at another. You change, experience different states, but you remain you.
Oh, I see. So I can go through emotional ups and downs, change my hair, but I'm still fundamentally the same person.
Precisely. And that's a hallmark of substance. It endures through change.
Wow, this makes me think about identity in a whole new way. So we've covered substance, the foundation. What about the other 9 categories? What do they encompass?
Well, that's a journey for part 2 of our deep dive. We'll explore how they help us understand the world around us and the relationships between things.
I'm already intrigued. But for now, let's take a quick break. Be sure to stick around for part 2. We'll delve into those remaining categories, uncover even more fascinating insights from Aristotle's categories.
Welcome back. So substance, that's our main character in Aristotle's system.
Right, the foundation.
But every story needs those supporting characters.
Of course.
Yeah.
A main character alone would be pretty boring.
Exactly. So what are these other categories, these supporting players?
Yeah, tell me about them.
Well, Aristotle gives us 9 more, each describing a different aspect of reality. And they add, just like a good supporting cast, they add depth, complexity to the story.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's hear about these supporting players.
Let's start with quantity. Think about the world around you. Everything has a quantity, right? A certain amount or number.
Yeah, like I have 2 hands, my desk is 3 feet long, and it's currently 3:30 p.m.
Perfect examples. Now, Aristotle distinguishes between 2 types of quantity, discrete and continuous.
Discrete and continuous. What's the difference?
Discrete quantities, those are things you can count individually.
Like apples, fingers, hours in a day.
You got it. Continuous quantities are things you can divide infinitely.
So like distance, time, even the surface of this table.
Exactly. And this distinction can be surprisingly helpful. You know, it helps us understand how different things are measured.
And how they relate to each other.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the next category then?
Next up, we've got quality. All about those characteristics, attributes, properties that describe things.
So we're talking adjectives now, like the table is brown, smooth, heavy.
Yeah, you could say that. But Aristotle goes deeper than simple adjectives.
How so?
He identifies different types of qualities. For example, habits. Those are acquired traits, like being virtuous or knowledgeable.
And there's that word habit again. Fascinating how it pops up.
Right. Aristotle's really interested in how we cultivate habits, how they shape us. But we'll see that in his other works. For now, let's stick with categories. What other types of qualities are there?
Well, you mentioned habits. What else?
Dispositions, more temporary states, like being hot or cold.
Okay, temporary versus those more lasting habits. Got it.
Then there are capacities,
Capacities like what?
our natural abilities or inabilities. For example, I might have the capacity to be a good singer. You might have the capacity to be a brilliant mathematician.
Things we're born with or potential to develop.
Exactly. Then there are affective qualities, the ones that impact our senses.
So things like sweetness, bitterness, roughness, smoothness, colors.
You got it. The qualities that make us feel something. Literally, we experience them through our senses.
Makes sense.
And lastly, for qualities, there's figure.
Figure, meaning.
Shape, form of something, whether it's round, square, triangular, or even something more complex.
Okay, so qualities are all about the whatness of a thing. Its color, shape, size, even its potential.
Got it.
What's next on our categorical tour?
Next up is relation. All about how things stand in comparison to each other.
So like bigger than, smaller than, to the left of, to the right of.
Yes. Things in this category, they only have meaning in reference to something else.
Okay.
Think about double and half. You can't have a double without something it's double of. And you can't have a half without a whole.
Makes me think of social relationships too. Like a parent only exists in relation to a child. Teacher in relation to his student.
That's a great connection. Aristotle was very interested in how these relationships shape us, shape our understanding of the world.
Okay, so relation is all about connections and comparisons. Got it. What else?
Now we get into the more dynamic categories. We have action, which refers to doing something, and affection, being acted upon. They're often paired together.
Okay, so like if I bake a cake, that's action.
Yes.
And the cake being baked is affection.
Exactly. Or if I teach you something, that's action. And you learning is affection.
So these categories are all about processes, interactions, Makes you think about how interconnected everything is.
It does. One action can lead to a whole chain reaction.
Of other actions and affection.
A very Aristotelian insight. He was fascinated by the interplay of forces, how things are constantly changing, influencing each other.
Okay, so we've covered quantity, quality, relation, action, and affection. What about the remaining four?
We're in the home stretch now. Last four are place, time, position, and state.
Those sound pretty self-explanatory.
They are. Places where something is, like in the market or at home. Time, when something happens, yesterday, at noon. Position, how something's arranged, standing up, lying down. And state refers to the condition of something, like being dressed, being armed.
So, to describe myself right now, using those categories, I could say I'm in my studio,
Place,
it's evening, I'm sitting down,
position,
and I'm wearing headphones.
state, you got it. And with those four, we've covered all 10 of Aristotle's categories.
Wow, we really journeyed through that whole map of reality. I have to admit, though, I'm still fuzzy on how this all applies, to my life. What's the takeaway here?
Well, that's a question we'll explore in part 3. We'll delve into how these seemingly abstract categories can actually help us think more clearly, communicate more effectively, maybe even understand ourselves a little better.
I'm looking forward to that. So, to all our listeners out there, be sure to join us for part 3, where we'll connect Aristotle's ancient wisdom to the modern world. Okay, so we've spent the last 2 parts on Aristotle's 10 categories, this ancient system for understanding reality. But I bet some listeners are thinking, so what?
Yeah, how does this help me?
Exactly. How does this help me in the modern world?
That's a great question, and it's one Aristotle was concerned with too. He believed philosophy wasn't just about abstract ideas.
It was about living a good life.
Right, a fulfilling life. So how do these categories translate into practical wisdom?
Yeah, how do they?
Well, for one thing, they help us be more precise.
More precise in what way?
In our thinking, our communication. Remember Aristotle's point about words having multiple meanings?
Yeah, like animal could be a real dog or a painting.
Exactly. And today we're bombarded with information. Being able to make those distinctions is crucial. Helps us cut through the noise, get to the heart of things.
So like when I'm reading news or having a debate, I should watch for those subtle shifts in meaning.
Absolutely. And that's where the categories come in. They're a framework for analyzing language, concepts. For example, someone says, this new policy is unjust. We can ask, what kind of quality is unjust? Is it a habit? A disposition?
It makes you think deeper, not just react emotionally.
Exactly. It's a tool for critical thinking, dissecting arguments, getting to the core.
Useful in so many situations, from politics to family discussions.
And beyond communication, the categories help us understand ourselves too. Think about substance. It encourages us to think about what makes us unique individuals.
It's not just our bodies or social roles.
Right, there's something deeper. Our enduring qualities, our values, aspirations, things that make us us, even as we change and grow.
That's a powerful idea. Makes me think about how I define myself, not by what I do or own,
But by your character.
by my values, exactly.
And that self-awareness, it's essential for a meaningful life. Helps us make choices aligned with our true selves.
So Aristotle's categories are almost like a roadmap.
For personal growth,
Exactly.
they give us a framework for understanding strengths, weaknesses, potential limitations.
Like he's saying, here are the building blocks of reality. Go build something amazing.
Exactly. That's the beauty of categories. It's not some dusty old text
It's a living system of thought.
that can help us navigate this complex world, live more fulfilling lives.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about. Hopefully they're excited to explore these ideas further.
I hope so too. And remember, this is just a taste of Aristotle.
His work is full of insights about so much. Human nature, ethics, politics.
So much more.
To our listeners, dive deeper into Aristotle's world. Pick up categories. Explore these concepts. Let us know what you discover.
And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of ideas.
Thanks for joining us on this philosophical adventure. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those mental filing cabinets organized.